Welcome to another episode of GlideChat. My name is Mike Lombardo, CEO of GlideFast. With me is Tim Catula, Senior BPC at GlideFast. Tim, what's going on, brother?
Hey, Mike. How's it going? Glad to be with you today.
Oh, man. It is, we were just chatting before the stream here that, man, this year, it does feel like it's off to a good start. And I'm really excited for 2023. This is our first GlideChat of 2023, actually.
Awesome.
So Tim, first of all, I have to say, you are probably the most certified consultant I've ever met. I mean, how many certifications do you own? I mean,
if we're talking ServiceNow alone, I currently hold 7. And if we're talking other certs, you want to throw in IDLE Foundations and CPDE, I'd be at 9, I guess.
Wow, that's all. And we're talking 7. Like you have like six or 7 CIS, right? Certified Implementation Specialist, 5 or 6 at least.
Yeah, I'm currently on 6 Certified Implementation Specialist certs.
Dude, it's congratulations. And
thank you.
There's always a debate about certifications out there of certifications don't mean everything, right? Experience matters and everything. But you know what, Tim, like I always say to people, whether I'm interviewing them or whatever, I'm like, if you don't have the cert, you have to explain to me why you don't have it. If you have it, it's nothing else left to be said, right?
Yeah, I think certifications, they provide the foundation. They prove that you know the essentials, certainly. Yep. Obviously, experience does trump certification, particularly in complex implementations. But the certs prove that you at least know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's just another feather in the cap. And no one's saying that's the end all be all, right? If you have all these certifications and you can't work with people and work with the customer and prove that expertise, put that expertise to work, that's definitely, not important. But it's like I said, it's another feather in your cap, and you don't have to explain it. And you get to say in your intro, you have 6 certified implementation specialist certification, which is just unbelievable. So first of all, congratulations. And thank you for continuing to get that, because that obviously adds to GlideFast's, capabilities and expertise. And you work so hard for GlideFast. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about your background and, how you ended up here at GlideFast?
Sure. I'll try to give you the summary version. So,
yeah. Cliff notes.
Yeah, the Cliff Notes version. So I would say after I graduated from university, I started off down the full stack web development path. Mm-hmm. Had a couple contract roles and kind of realized that wasn't really the path for me. And while I was in graduate school, I had an opportunity with a company here locally in the Detroit area where I live, a managed services provider, who gave me a shot to be a new junior business analyst, basically.
Nice. Yeah.
And so my job started off being, Tim, go out and gather the requirements and document everything. And I hand it off to development and shepherd it through the whole development cycle. Mm-hmm. After that, eventually some of my technical abilities came to be known within the company. And so they had me actually working on some other workflow software prior to transitioning over to ServiceNow.
Yep.
Where I was designing flows and particularly, ironically enough, in the HR space for our internal HR team. After about 1.5 years of that, my vice president at the time approached me and said, Tim, we really need you to start working with the ServiceNow platform and transitioning into being the full-time business analyst in that capacity. Did that for a little while and actually earned my admin cert and ended up becoming a hybrid business analyst and system administrator for the entire platform while I was there. And so that's where I really learned kind of the guts of how the platform works. And
were you a customer?
Was it? Yes, we were a customer. That was how I started off.
That's great.
Absolutely.
That's great. That's how I started.
I would say I started on the Berlin release. And in fact, one of my first big initiatives as a new admin was to upgrade us from Berlin to Dublin. So
Yeah.
Berlin to Calgary, then to Dublin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
did
was,
Aspen to Berlin. Actually, when we became a ServiceNow customer, I think it was like 2010, they had just released Aspen. So I think like, so I was like, man, this is, it was going from like winter, spring, like years and seasons to the named releases, which was pretty cool. And yeah, I was going to ask you, because you have a lot of these quote unquote like technical certifications. It's almost like you wear both hats, right? Like, or it's like you could have gone down that developer path, or you did. But is your passion more on the process side?
I would say yes. That turned out to be more of where my passion lay, was in terms of working with clients to understand where they're currently at in terms of maturity and where they want to get to ultimately, and coming up with those roadmaps, and then moving into a design and implementation phase. And
why? Because a lot of people think, and sometimes I'm guilty of it too, right? A lot of people think, everyone always thinks how important the architecture is and the technical side, but maybe you can explain to the audience and me a little bit as why the process architecture up front in those workshops are so crucial to setting the stage for the future.
It's crucial for many reasons, Mike. I always say that to be a good BPC, really, it's about learning, knowing, and understanding the overall objectives of what the client's leadership and key stakeholders are in implementing the platform. But also your client audience, and also when to accept the requirement that you're being told versus when to maybe push back on it a little bit. And say, well, I understand that that's the need, but here's a way in which ServiceNow could maybe do that without having to over-personalize or create a custom process for them.
100%. Right? Keep the integrity of the platform. And Tim, what you just said is truly an art form, because there's a couple different ways to approach that, right? When you say, the way you can do it your way, the way you said it, which is, the best way of saying it in a professional way that doesn't hurt anybody's feelings. And then there's that's a stupid idea. You can't do it that way, and maybe not that rash, but even saying it without that much, without that elegance, and if you say it in a way like the person's not getting their toy, they're going to push back on you, right? But if you say it in a way, hey, here's how you can get exactly what you're looking for, but here's how it's going to play better within ServiceNow and also be a better process, right? A better user experience. Absolutely. And that is really so crucial to, I think, any consulting probably, right? Obviously, specifically to ServiceNow as well.
Architects love to use the term technical debt, right? And when you that's great when you're working with ITSM clients, right? But when it's someone like HR or CSM client hears that, they're like, what do you mean by technical debt? People that are not as technically familiar with the platform, right? Or not familiar with development work. So to them, it has to be explained in terms of, well, if we do X, Y, Z, and it requires us to do all these hours of custom work or custom personalization, essentially. And then ServiceNow comes out 2 releases from now with functionality that meets 80 to 90% of what you're asking for.
Now we have,
you've just spent however many hours of of development time on,
and you got to spend all that time, and the debt, what's owed is now undoing that, right? Because I always
time and cost. That was what I was looking to say, was time and cost.
Time and cost. It's to undo that, right? Not even it's like you're in debt. Like it's someday someone's gonna come looking to collect, right? Like it's not even the money you spend to get there. It's what is it gonna cost to get out of it now, right?
Totally. I mean, I can remember I saw just as an example, one time I saw several years ago an implementation of incident management where it had been turned into what ServiceNow would now offer as field service management.
Yep.
And so that company now has to probably go back and refactor incident management, start all over again, and start all over again with field service as well.
100%.
That's rough.
It's rough. And, you know, it's sometimes, and most of the time, it's not anybody's fault, right? Like ServiceNow is very feature rich today. That's why when I see a new customer coming into ServiceNow, I'm like, you don't know how lucky you are that you get to take advantage of all these pre-built applications and features that frankly were just not here. You know, I was part of a re-implementation at Costco years ago when I still had my technical chops. And it wasn't there. They had to re-implement ServiceNow, and it wasn't because they did something wrong necessarily. It wasn't even really bad practice. They bought ServiceNow in 2009, you know, and they didn't have, better than anyone, it didn't exist.
Or what was recommended practice then? Not recommended practice anymore.
100%. Right? And that's just the reality of innovation as well. It's not a bad thing on ServiceNow. It's good that ServiceNow is constantly innovating. And some of it is just, the cost of if you want to be, at the forefront of digital transformation, if you want to be a first mover, you're going to have some bumps and bruises along the way too, right?
Totally.
So tell me a little bit about, so you're a senior BPC, one of the best in the world, by the way. Maybe for some of the audience doesn't know that. Maybe tell some of the audience out there, what are some of the roles and responsibilities that entails here at GlideFast, and what you do day to day.
Well, certainly it's a very client-facing role. I'm a big part of several implementation projects on an annual basis that we go through here. And what I do typically is I come in at the beginning, and it's my job to understand, okay, here's what we need to accomplish on the platform. These are the goals for what we're trying to build out.
Yep.
Here are the requirements of how we're going to get there. And ultimately, this is the process we're going to follow. And so I come in and I try to guide and shepherd clients through the whole process of defining those processes and requirements, right?
Yep.
And then I go and I write those up, usually in the form of user stories. And we go through the various agile planning sessions, and we move into development, where the stories get handed over to TCs, and we go through the development cycle. And at that point, it becomes a matter of a lot of times shepherding the client through the sprint reviews. So at the end of each sprint, we go over the work that's completed. We note any additional requirements that the client might have coming out of those sprint reviews.
I thought that never happens. Two things I wanted to ask you, and sorry to interrupt you, but two things.
No, absolutely.
Jumped out at me. But one question I really legitimately have is, we want to be prescriptive to our customers, right? And say, hey, this is how other companies in your industry do it, right?
That's right.
But you also need to understand what their process is today, and like sometimes you get the mixed match of customers. Sometimes you get a customer that's like, we don't care how we do it today. We want to know how other companies do it, right? But it's like, whoa. We need to understand how you operate today, and then we can suggest improvements and get you to a happy path. But we need to know what the baseline is. You can't just throw all that out, because IT still moving, or HR, every process, every workflow. We're building this plane as we're flying. So, like, what's your perspective on that? Of being prescriptive, but also understanding how they're doing it today and how to navigate those customers that way.
Well, obviously, being prescriptive is very important. It's what most of our clients look to a BPC to do. Or from a technical standpoint, also the architect. But the job is essentially, what do you recommend based on your previous experience?
I guess I didn't phrase it as a great question either, but it's like, you want to ask the customer how they're doing it today. And we need to understand. Do you agree that we need to understand when you go into a greenfield customer? Do you need to understand how they, I'm going to IT, but like HR, whatever. Do you need to understand how they operate today to help them implement ServiceNow?
I absolutely do.
Yeah.
And that's for several reasons. But the big one being, change management, right? That whole organizational change management element of it. If you're going to go through and have a whole transformational program and make major changes to your existing processes, and it may be a complete process redesign, right? Where we're going from our current state and we're just throwing it out entirely and we're going to our new future state.
Yep.
But we have to understand the current state because that's a lot of change and we have to figure out how we're going to manage it, right?
Yes. Yeah. 100%. And you also said earlier about the audience and understanding. So you said we need to understand the objectives and we need to understand the audience. I thought that was really interesting because I haven't really heard anybody call that out specifically. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit on what you meant by that?
This is something that I've been trying to work on more in the last few years. I used to approach my role in the early days. I approached my role with, okay, Tim, you're the order taker. Whatever the client wants, that's what they're going to get. You write it up and you hand it over, and that's that.
Yeah.
Now it's important more than ever to ask the question why.
Yeah.
Because if you can't get a good answer as to why a requirement exists or why a process has to be done this way, or if the answer is, well, that's how we've always done it.
Yeah, exactly. They'll throw it out.
Then that's not necessarily going to be a great value add when we go to build that out into the ServiceNow platform, right?
Exactly. My secret to that? My secret, man, we're giving a lot of secrets out here. My secret is when there's something that comes up like along those lines, I always say, okay, what's the business value of that requirement? Right? Like, what's the business gaining? What's our organization? What is the value of capturing, how long it took someone to walk from the parking lot to their desk? Like, what are we doing with that information, right? Like, is it helping you perform a better service to your employees, to your customers by adding this requirement? That's a big one. And then what's the other one I always
putting
say?
Fields on the form, right? Like, how badly do we need this data? And are you actually going to report on it?
What are you doing with it? Yeah. Like, what's the point of capturing all this field?
Are you going to load it into Excel and run business intelligence on it?
No,
what are you going to do with it? Right.
It's a swivel chair. It's how you always done it. And, breaking through, that's what the power of OCM and the value of organizational change management, I think, is just getting people to understand. It's like, it's okay to not do it the way we used to. It's about where's the value in doing different things. And that's what I always did when I was working with customers. I'd always just try to get them to think about that. And I was thinking when you said like understand your audience, it's real important to understand the personalities in the room, who the leaders are, right? Because you have to be careful. You can't make the leader in the room, we can't overrule them, and that's why
there's an element of diplomacy, which is also important to the BPC role, I think is what you've been hinting at for several minutes now. But there's definitely an element of diplomacy.
Absolutely.
To being a good BPC for sure.
Yep. Keeping the room happy and all that.
When I was talking about understanding your audience too, also it's a matter of understanding your stakeholders as well, particularly depending on what application you're working with, right? Because I can be a lot more technical with an IT audience than I can with an HR audience.
Oh yeah.
An HR audience, I have to do some translation of terminology and such. I got to speak HR's language more.
100%. And there's nothing like HR and IT, like oil and water, right? It's just two completely different things.
I wish they weren't, but they are.
They are. I wish they weren't either. Maybe give one piece of advice for someone out there, looking to further their process consulting skills, and get to a level like you're at. And what's some advice you could give some someone aspiring?
Honestly, honestly, I would say it's a matter of always stay curious. Make sure that you're always learning and always digging into aspects of the platform, or even aspects of other technologies outside of the platform, for your own awareness. Keep up that passion, right? And take every opportunity that you can to learn from people who are more experienced than you are. I would say is definitely where I've gotten to where I am today.
That's absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Be humble and soak it up. Surround yourself with great people too. I mean, it's you're not gonna, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in trouble, right?
Oh yeah.
But which you, in this case, you are. So, but
Oh,
Tim, Tim, thank you for joining us for another episode of Glide Chat. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, share it on LinkedIn, and check us out on Spotify as well. Thank you, everybody.